Peggy 18.
In this video, I'm gonna show you how to make yourself look like you just rose up from the dead. I know, Halloween is pretty much over, so it's pretty stupid that I'm making this video now, but let's just see it as goodbye to Halloween. Anyway, I'm gonna show you how to zombify yourself, because who wouldn't want to look dead? Take a picture of yourself, your mom, your dad, whoever you want, and make sure they look a bit dead already, like I do here. I actually just woke up when I took this picture, which is perfect actually, because I shouldn't look too alive. Import your photo into Photoshop and cut yourself out with whatever tool you like. I highly suggest the pen tool because it's definitely the most precise. Refine your mask by double clicking on the mask and using the Refine Edge tool and these sliders. Finally, add a solid color as temporary background because those transparency blocks are annoying as hell. Now we are gonna make me look like I just died and came back to life. So drop in an image of a skull. If your face is facing the camera like mine is, you can use the link in the description to download this one. Decrease the opacity a bit and try to align it with your face. Focus on the eyes and mouth, the overall shape doesn't really matter. Bring the opacity back to 100% and double click on the skull layer. Hold Alt and click on this bottom right slider. Now move the right part all the way to the right and hit OK. Retransform your skull if need to and add a new layer mask to it. Now start erasing some areas you don't want. When you're done, you can set the blend mode to luminosity. This makes sure it only affects the lightness and not any colors. You can use brightness and contrast to match it with the lightness of the rest of your image. If you have a grainy image like I have, you can add some noise manually. Now let's work on the eyes. Zombies tend to have weird eyes, so let's do that too. Add a new levels adjustment layer and name it Eyes. Take out some dark and invert the layer mask. Then use your brush to paint on the eyes. How you make them look is totally up to you because you have pretty much 100 options here. Now this is the point where it gets really intense. Duplicate your skull layer and call it Skull External. Delete its mask and go to Filter and choose Liquify. Make sure Show Backdrop is checked and try to align the left jaw with your own jaw. The other stuff doesn't matter, just focus on the jaw. When you're done, hit OK. Now clip both the skull and external skull to the subject. Add a mask to the external skull layer and remove everything but the jaw. Now go to the mask of the subject and remove the areas in between the jaw like this. Add the next image in the description and transform it like this. Use Warp for bending the image. Clip this to the subject too and use a layer mask to erase some areas. When you did that, go to Filter and choose Levels. Take some of the black and some of the white out by using the slider at the bottom. You can now adjust the mask of the subject according to the new image you added. Name that layer Flesh, copy it and move it all the way down. Remove the mask, reposition it and use brightness and contrast to make it darker. Now adjust the mask of the subject to this image as well. Beautiful. Before we're gonna make this really intense, let's take a quick break and explore some fun facts about our beloved zombies. We all know what a zombie is, or can be. There are basically two theories of the origin of zombies. 1. A cursed person dies and returns as a zombie, or 2. A person contracts a virus or is exposed to radiation. While the causes of zombies throughout history have varied, one element links them: they all have compromised brains. And did you know that the name zombie comes from the African word Nzambi, which means god? Mummies are not usually regarded as zombies, but why actually is that? Quite simple. While zombies are in a constant state of decay, mummies are deliberately physically preserved. Also interesting, because viruses are not independent living organisms and need a living organism to reproduce, a zombie virus could be considered as a misnomer because zombies are generally thought to be dead. Well, that's quite enough for today. Let's get back to the video. Add a new exposure adjustment layer and clip it with the subject. Bring down exposure and invert the mask. Now paint with your brush on the areas around the eyes. After this, you could use Blend If to make it a bit more realistic. You can now use that same adjustment layer to make the cheeks a bit more hollow. When done, you can adjust the darkness to get the best result for your image. There is not enough detail, so for that you can use an image like this. Like we did with the skull, decrease the opacity and try to align it with yourself. Bring back the opacity to 100% and double click on the layer to access Blend If. Split this upper slider and bring the left side all the way to the left, then hit OK. Add a new layer mask, invert it and start painting on the areas where you want detail. Call the layer Wrinkles and put it under the Darken layer. Decrease the opacity to your liking and set its blend mode to luminosity. It's a bit sharp for my image, so I use Gaussian blur to slightly blur it. By the way, I now see how shady this part looks, so try to make this inner flesh image a bit darker by adjusting its smart filters. You can also add a layer mask to remove some stuff. Do make sure to adjust the subject's mask too if you do this. Use the Darken layer to darken the inner side of the nose. For one more dramatic change, we're gonna add this image. We're mainly focusing on this area as some kind of crack. Position it like this and go to Blend If, split this slider and bring the left one to the left and the right one a bit too. Add a negative mask by holding Alt and clicking on the mask button. Now paint with a brush on this area. You will now see some nasty shit appear. Set its blend mode back to multiply and remove stuff you don't want. Use levels to make black less black and reposition it to where you like. You can now add these kind of cracks and wounds on places you like. For everything it works pretty much the same. Now you could also add some blood and bruises. For this you could either find blood brushes or paint it manually. Create a new dark red solid color and set its blend mode to overlay. Invert the mask and start painting some blood. When you're done, name the layer Blood and Bruises and decrease the opacity if you want. For some extra detail, you can use this image to create some more scratches and stuff. Use Blend If to remove the bright areas and set its blend mode to multiply. Then mask away the stuff you don't want. Now let's change the overall skin color because I look way too alive right now. Add a new vibrance adjustment layer and clip it with the subject. Now decrease the saturation and use a brush to remove some areas. For example, around the eyes, nose and wounds you probably need some color. Then add a new hue and saturation adjustment layer and clip it too. Simply bring the top slider slightly to the right, really just a tiny bit. This gives an ill greenish color instead of reddish. Maybe one more nice detail would be adding a red edge around the eyes. A dark red solid color set to overlay. Right now you could pretty much do your own thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do. The possibilities are endless. As you can see, I don't really have much blood, because I think that's a little too general. I think the essence of a zombie isn't blood, but actually looking dead. Looking like there isn't a single bit of life left in you. Now, one thing is off. My hair. I wouldn't say it's good in this picture, but it's certainly way too good for a zombie. But honestly, I don't really care. I mean, maybe before I got zombified I just had lots of hair gel in my hair, who knows. Okay, so select everything except for the background, group it and name it zombie. Change the background color to black, copy that layer and move it up and clip it with the zombie. Invert the mask and start painting softly around the edges to give the impression the light comes from the front instead of the back. Now hit Ctrl-Alt-Shift-E, which merges everything into one layer, which I actually learned from some of you guys in the last episode, so that's funny. Convert that new layer into a smart object and go to Filter and choose Camera Raw Filter. As usual, this is all up to you, however I strongly suggest you bring up clarity and texture by quite a bit, because this is gonna make it more dramatic and more detailed. You could add a background and everything, but personally I think the simplicity of this looks pretty cool. You can of course also make the background light if you want, that's all up to you. One last thing, you can add depth of field. Go to Filter, Blur Gallery and choose Field Blur. Here you can make points on which you can attach a blur value. This way you have full control over what is and what isn't blurred. When you're done, don't forget to add some noise here at the right, because noise is always all over the image, also on the blurred parts. So yeah, that is actually pretty much how it's done. Now it's time for my favorite Reddit submission for this video, and this time it is this cute creation. I don't know why I call it cute actually, but I think Lego minifigures look pretty cute. This is made by Brian Mosheim. Thank you so much for posting, you're awesome. I really like the idea of doing this to a Lego figure instead of a regular portrait. Very original. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and leave a comment on what I can turn myself into next. If you enjoy my content, feel very free to subscribe to my channel, it would mean the world to me. Then I hope I will see you in my next video.